Good morning. Thanks for coming to talk about getting the most from your workplace data. My name is Davey Bryan, and I lead workplace experience for North America at Avanade. And so in my role, I'm working with chief CXOs of one kind and of another, from technology to digital to HR to operations, to talk about employee and workplace experience. And so there's been some significant advances, especially in Microsoft technologies over the last couple of years with the introduction of workplace analytics that allow us to gather more and more data around people and behaviors and practices that can really open up a whole new world when we're talking about workplace experience. So let me start by saying that we have long known that investments in employees can yield tangible, meaningful business results. So through our partnership with MIT Scissor, we know that companies that perform in the top quartile in employee experience have on average twice the customer satisfaction scores of those who perform in the bottom quartile. Those top employee experience performers also have on average twice the innovation rates, and that's measured by new products and services to the market. They're also 26% more profitable than organizations in the bottom quartile. So those are some pretty startling statistics. If there's ever a question about do you need to invest in employee experience, the answer is yes. There's also a couple contextual things that are happening. So there's an organization that's called the Business Roundtable, and it's made up of CEOs of 200 plus companies, big name brands like PepsiCo, Accenture, Apple. And on a periodic basis, they issue what's called a statement around the purpose of an organization, the purpose of a corporation. And for the first time in history, that statement on the purpose of a corporation, it now includes investment in employees. In fact, investment in employees is ranked higher than maximizing shareholder value, and it positions shareholder value as a way in investing in employees, environment and communities, and in customer experiences. So that's a pretty big shift that the market's still trying to figure out how to interpret. There's also a proposal to the SEC that all US publicly traded companies be required to report as part of their financial metrics employee and human capital metrics to the extent that they impact financial outcomes. So it could be that in the very near future, as part of your regular SEC filings, you now have to identify what are the human capital metrics that have the most impact on business outcomes, and then report it as part of your SEC filings. So the evidence is overwhelming. We have to talk about employee experience. Now let me start by just a little bit different definition of employee experience, and one that I think is very realistic and practical and actionable. So at Avanade, we've retitled this workplace experience, and there are three parts of it. It starts with modern platforms, the tools and the applications and the technologies that exist, the IT operating model, your policies around BYOD and citizen development. I think this is an area where most of us are very, very comfortable playing, and often within IT or digital, there's a group dedicated to employee experience that's driving those kind of actions. And we think that's one piece of it, but that's not sufficient. The second is optimized operations. And sometimes when we're driving these employee experience initiatives, we do talk about the IT, technology, digital operations that help support these modern platforms. But the thing is, the lives of the employees that you're trying to impact don't live just within IT or digital. They live in finance and HR and operations, and they're in the field. And so our ability to talk about business operations, decision rights, delegations of authority, business processes, the organizational structure and operating model that exists is becoming more and more important to be able to speak a language that's broader than IT. And finally, a reimagined culture and employee experience. I think we're accustomed to sometimes talking about the experience of interacting with the technology or the experience of moving from one to the other. But the thing is, when I have a former colleague call me and say, tell me what it's like to work at Avanade, tell me what it's like in the workplace, I don't say, let me tell you about our SharePoint. I don't say, let me tell you about the time and expense app that we use. I talk in a more holistic way about what is it like to be in this workplace. And that's the way we're redefining it. So again, I think workplace experience is a much more holistic title and much more realistic and gives us some actionable levers. So a couple of things to point out about this. First of all, each of these circles have historically been owned in different parts of the organization. And so even defining workplace experience in this way means you're working beyond your organizational boundaries, perhaps in a way that you haven't done in the past. The second thing that I want to point out is that workplace experience is not homogeneous across the entire organization. So if we do a little compare and contrast, if we're talking about designing a workplace experience for a call center employee, it's about maximizing every minute of the day. It's about strict adherence to process. Innovation may look more like continuous improvement in that case. Compare that to a salesperson, where you want them to understand where are the places where you've got to strictly adhere to process versus where are the places where you may have a little wiggle room. Innovation probably does look like new products and services. They need a little slack in their day to build relationships and can't have every minute accounted for. The last thing I want to point out about this particular view is that this requires that we elevate employee experience so it has parity with customer experience. I think that's a pretty important point here. So we often go to our business partners and our end users and say, tell me what you want. What are the requirements around this technology? That's not the way we treat customers. So one of the examples I use is, the vans and hatchback cars that have the gate that you can run your foot over and the back opens, right? How many carpool dads and soccer moms would they have talked to before somebody said, hey, I want this fancy sensor that opens the door for me when my hands are full? No. They had to live a day in the life of their customers. They'd understand how this product fits into their daily lives so they could innovate and create something that was useful. That's exactly what we've got to do with employees. Okay, so let's move on to the workplace data then. We've often said that employees, our people, are our biggest asset, but do we really treat them as though they're an asset? If you make a comparison to, say, a manufacturing line, you understand if you speed this belt up by 0.25 seconds, or you turn this screw half a turn to the left, you know what's going to happen. You understand the output. We haven't had the ability to treat our employees and our human capital and our organization in the same way, but we're getting close. So let's talk a little bit about it. So we think that workplace analytics, the data that comes from a tool like WPA, as well as other data sources, can increase productivity and drive better performance. And so we've got both ends of the spectrum there, a cost reduction and a revenue or value gain. That's an important point when we're talking to the business. It's not just about efficiency, it's also about value creation. And we think that there are three primary ways that we can use this data and analytics. So the first is diagnosing opportunities. So looking for the points of correlation, the gaps, and understanding what are the levers that have the biggest impact on what you're trying to measure. Operational income, revenue, etc. It can also be used to define value. So building a business case around significant technology investments, and in a way, again, that is not just about cost reduction, but it's also about value creation. And lastly, driving transformation. So I don't know if you've had this experience where maybe you have a merger, maybe you have a new strategy requiring groups and individuals to work together in a different way. So you redo the org chart, you give them new job descriptions, co-locate them on the same floor, put in fancy hubs and workstations and open floor plans, and we just expect them to spontaneously start working together in a different way, right? Does that work? Absolutely not. It doesn't work. So this data can be used in a way to monitor actual behaviors so you can understand are people working together in the way that you need them to through a period of transition or transformation. So I want to tell a couple of stories about when we've done this with our customers, and then something new that we're trying that's a little bit more of a creative way of looking at workplace analytics. So this example is from a German engineering company, and you see the title here, Meeting Overload. Does that feel familiar? It does to me. So we're working with the CFO in this case, and he says, I get the impression that we're in meetings all day, and then we're doing the actual work all night. We have the intent that these meetings are for collaboration, these meetings for us to come together and make decisions and get work done, but we think we might just be meeting for the sake of meeting. How do we know? How do we know if it would make a difference if we did something about it? What should we do about it? And so here's some of the questions that he came to us with. Is this really necessary? And I thought the second one was a really powerful question. What is our meeting culture costing us? We sort of intrinsically know that there's a cost associated. I mean, even if it's just time spent after hours, but what is it really costing us? And then what do we know about high-performing teams versus low-performing teams? And in this case, it was a project-based organization, and so performance was really measured by on time and on budget. Some teams are performing well, some of them aren't. Are there differences that we maybe can learn and apply elsewhere? So at a high level, let me just sort of walk you through what we did. We started with Microsoft Workplace Analytics to understand behaviors, understand interactions with systems. And so Workplace Analytics can tell us things like how much free time and focused working time do people have in a day versus scheduled meeting time? What's the size of their network? Is it beyond their organizational boundary or within their organizational boundary? On which teams are they multitasking versus actually paying attention? Sorry, which meetings are they multitasking versus actually paying attention? So we took that data and combined it with data from other sources. So travel data. When are they traveling? Where are they traveling? In which cases are projects located either proximate or distal to their home work location? We looked at real estate. When are people actually in the offices, in which offices, and for which reasons? We looked at project operational data, so not just on time and on budget, but what were some of the practices that were used within those project teams? Were they meeting the interim milestones in an on time and on budget way? And then we also allowed for some future data sources, just in case we wanted to continue and expand based on what we found in the first place. So this went into, we worked through data ingestion through an Azure-based platform, and went into a data lake where we started with doing some correlation analysis. So looking at each of these factors, looking for correlation against the other. And then what we did was use machine learning to look at cluster analysis so that we could start comparing perhaps individuals who are at an executive level in what function on which days or locations against other clusters of factors to look for comparisons. So in this case, what we learned is that there are some differences in performance between high-performing teams and low-performing teams. And it really involved focused working time. So what was that balance? So what we found is that those folks were getting work done in smaller groups outside of official meeting time, and then the meeting time was more to inform others about what they'd been doing. We also found that there was a lot of time being spent after hours, and so that was running up costs in all kinds of ways. And we also got some information then about the cultural implications and the expectations of managers and the way that they were helping to reinforce this culture of too many meetings. So what we're doing, we developed this into a dashboard then for the CFO so that he could understand what were the leading indicators that we were moving away from a meeting culture. And now we're in the process of implementing that so it's more automated and pulling from that data lake so that he can drive the cultural transformation over time. We know it's not going to be immediate, but we've got that consistent feedback loop. We've got our next question, and we're about to go through the same process with our next question. So let me talk about then one more example that's a little bit more, I'm going to say, a creative way of working through some workplace data and analytics. So at Avanade, we said, listen, we have sort of known for a while that investing in employees and the employee experience allows them to deliver a better customer experience and that there are financial outcomes from that. But can we prove it? can we mathematically prove that this works? And then what are these specific employee experience levers that have the most impact on customer experience and financial outcomes? So it started a bit as a research project. So you'll see here some of our data sources. Some of them we did primary research, some of them we purchased, some of them are publicly available. We also did interviews with employees across about 200 companies in our first run and are expanding this data. And we applied a proprietary AI and machine learning method here in order to identify what are the workplace and employee experience levers that have the most correlation with customer experience and with financial outcomes. So what we found is there are 50 employee experience levers, 70 CX levers, and identified over 300 plus strong correlations. So this gives us the baseline now to say, we understand what levers to pull. Now we can take this to your organization, to any organization, and use your data against these identified levers to figure out what makes the most difference for you. And we're doing this internally also. So here are some of the levers that we've found. And so you see that this is a pretty hefty list. It also requires that we think about workplace data in a little bit different way. And so you're going to see things here like culture and diversity. So yeah, we're bringing in workplace analytics data, but we're also looking at culture surveys and engagement surveys and focus groups that have been conducted. We're talking about the complexity, the degree of complexity in just getting work done. How complicated are our processes? How many systems do you have to interact with? How many times do you need to log in repeatedly? We've also identified client experience levers. And sometimes we start there with a client experience question. Sometimes we start with an employee experience question. And then what we've been able to do is to tie that directly through this analytical method to sales, to EBITDA, and to market cap. I want to give you just a peek at then some of the results that we're finding. And again, that's across top line growth, operational efficiencies, and client experience. This is something that we developed for a particular conversation where they were very interested in sort of frontline workers and their impact on customers as they're standing at their desk. And so you're going to see here that there's significant contribution across things like work complexity with your technology, with just over 19% sales growth. So that's a clear IT imperative that has emerged just there. Now this is based on some outside-in analytics. Your specific data may yield different results, but using these identified levers, this is what we found for this organization. We found 25% sales growth attributed with employee experience. Again, I think we intuitively know that taking care of our people allows them to sell more and deliver an exceptional customer service. It's an entirely different thing to be able to put a number on it, to be able to say we could have as much as 25% sales growth. So all of a sudden, this isn't a cost reduction question. This isn't an efficiency gain. This isn't let me squeeze IT for everything I can get out of it. This is now a valuable business partner that's adding to our top line growth. And then for this client who was interested in client experience, you'll see that these were some of the high correlations there. And so it gives them some direction in terms of customer experience also. So just a couple of things then to note about your workplace data. First, analytics for the sake of analytics is unsuccessful. You're going to be wading through data, inventing correlations for no real purpose. And so both of these examples, we had either a hypothesis to test or a question to answer. And that leads us to then, you'd need a business sponsor and a real problem to solve. You've got to have sponsorship from the business. And just like we started with that diagram on workplace experience, it means that you're reaching perhaps into parts of the organization you haven't worked closely with in the past. Combine that workplace data with multiple other sources. And so I hope you've seen a couple of times some more creative sources of data that can be used to build your business case and understand your levers around employee and workplace experience. And then lastly, there are some hurdles that exist. And so I think one of the most important hurdles is around privacy, and is around just the impression that employees have around how much that their work is being monitored. Now, there are clear controls in place through Workplace Analytics, the Microsoft product, that means that data is correlated at a higher level, so no one's looking at individual data. And we've recently had some successes in getting this kind of analysis approved by European Works Councils. And so these hurdles are very quickly evaporating. So thanks for your time and your attention to talk about workplace experience and talk about how data can help drive a differentiated workplace experience and competitive advantage for you. Our time is just about up, but I'm happy to stick around if you've got any questions or want to talk about it. So thank you, and enjoy Ignite.